a dreadful murder of an 8-year-old girl. When adults lie, the child's spirit will reveal the truth about the pedophile murderer and his hypocritical accomplice. Welcome to Psychics Investigate. There are only real impressive stories that people who call themselves psychics try to sort out here. In this episode, a young woman from a small town in eastern Ukraine contacted the clairvoyants. Katerina is searching for her 8-year-old sister, Valya.
Hello, help me, please. My sister disappeared 12 years ago. She was my only close relative. I loved her so much.
One August evening of 2006, little Valya was playing with her friend in the courtyard of the 5-story building in which their family lived. Later, her friend came back home while Katerina's sister disappeared.
We went to the police after waiting for 3 days and hoping she would probably be back. But Valya never returned.
The police did the search and interrogated people, asking if someone had heard or knew something.
However, they found no clues. Nobody had seen or heard anything suspicious.
After a week of the search for the little Valya Varich, the police informed the family they had presumably found her, dead.
The girl had been strangled, but the family was never asked to identify the body.
They said the body was heavily mutilated. They only showed us her things, and we recognized some fragments of her clothing.
Does this mean you didn't even see your sister's body at the funeral?
No, they forbade us. There was a policeman who accompanied us to make sure we didn't open the casket.
Do you mean you're uncertain if she's dead?
Yes. Here's her final photo.
I had a vision. A man's hands holding a wire, which is tied in a very strange knot. The knot is tied around the little Valya's neck.
I understand it won't console you, but you really buried your sister? The child is murdered. She's like crucified and has a crown of thorns on her head.
A shocking revelation. Was this a ritual murder, or what else could the clairvoyant's words mean?
She was found at a military graveyard. They said she'd been strangled with a wreath.
Her murderer was never found.
No.
I'd like to tune into the site where she disappeared.
We took the girl's photo to work with it later that day.
In the morning before the investigation, the psychics started discussing something excitedly.
The murdered Valya was standing in front of me, but she wasn't alone. Next to her was a girl of her age. She was dark-haired and had a dandelion wreath on her head. She was also murdered. They were both strangled.
Could it be some kind of serial child killer?
Meanwhile, the little Valya's friends and family have gathered in the courtyard in which she disappeared.
I saw her say goodbye to a girl, then look at her phone and leave the playground.
Let's summon the girl's spirit. She says, Katyunya.
Yes, this is what called me. Forgive me, my dear little sister. I couldn't protect you.
She says it's not your fault.
She sees a car of fair color. Its window is open, and through the window, she sees someone's eyes. The eyes are smiling, and she smiles in response.
Katerina says she also heard about the car from one of the neighbors.
When she looked out of the window, she saw a white car. Valya was getting into it.
There's a man in the car. He gives her a doll, and the girl gets in his car. The man accelerates sharply. He takes her somewhere where there's nobody around. The man tormented the child. It's so terrible. It's not a human, but a beast. Oh, God. She was thrown away like a broken doll.
The body was in a strange pose. It looked like he attempted to rape her, but we were never told if she was raped or not. She would never approach a stranger, even to get a doll.
He looks like someone she used to know, but then didn't see for some time.
Her godfather. He often went to work abroad. Every time he returned, he brought her presents.
Valya's godfather was in another town on the day when she disappeared, but the girl didn't know that.
She took the other man for him.
Because of the doll.
Your sister's murderer is dead. She showed us him. He died in the same car. It looked like it crashed. The last thing he saw in the darkness was your sister's eyes. And then, the brakes squealed and the car crashed into a tree.
But Valya's spirit asked us to help another girl who's being threatened by another man. It's a little girl of about 7 or 8.
We don't have any little girls in our family.
Valya's spirit says you're the mother of the girl we're supposed to save from death.
Do you have a daughter of 7 or 8?
Yes, Amina.
It turned out that this young woman lives with her family in one of the neighboring buildings. She and her mother and aunt were on the way home.
I saw the psychics, and so we decided to come up.
Lisa was planning to contact the psychics anyway because some kind of evil spirit has been haunting her little daughter.
Something is threatening the child. I fear for her.
However, Anna Sukhanova feels that the threat emanates from a human. But the girl's mom claims it's an otherworldly entity.
I saw a notebook, and in it, there was a phrase written in a kid's handwriting, "He's the evil," and there was one word there. Had I deciphered it then, I would have made the mother confess everything.
Could the phrase from the child's notebook mean the otherworldly force? What is going on to the little Amina?
Smoke. Fire.
Did you have a fire at your home?
Yes, we did. My mother woke up and ran to extinguish it.
It turned out that one night, the whirring in the apartment where the family lives burned, and the curtain caught fire quickly. Lisa's mother was extremely fortunate to extinguish the fire, but Lisa believes somebody from the other world stands behind the fire.
I felt something pass by me, but when I turned around, I saw nothing.
And a few days before the fire, Lisa witnessed somebody's ghost next to her daughter.
The silhouette was vague, as if it was made of smoke or mist.
You're not the only one to feel it.
My aunt feels it too.
I felt something, like a hand, running along my hair. I got so scared.
To find out what is threatening Lisa's daughter, I needed to see the girl. Hello? Could you please give me your hands? You can take the child. I see a storeroom. I see a little girl sobbing next to a suitcase. She's holding a doll in her hands. But the doll looks like it's smeared in something red. Like blood. It's not Amina, but energetically, this girl is very much like Amina.
Who could this girl be?
Look over there.
There's a girl sitting on the swing. I saw her in my dream. The dandelion wreath. She was strangled like Valya. She's calling out. What is this? It hurts a lot. Dead eyes.
She's lying in a sack. It's so cold around her. She's wearing some dark pants. And the sweater that looks like yours. It's pink. Her feet are bare.
This is my sister.
My daughter.
It's shocking. Jana didn't even know where it had happened.
She was raped, first strangled, and then thrown away.
What was her name?
Ayla. She went to top up my phone and never returned.
That I was absent then.
Back then, Lisa was living in another town. Her mother got ill and stayed home. She needed to top up her mobile phone. And her younger daughter went to do it for her mom.
When she wasn't back in 20 minutes, I went to find her. Having checked everywhere, looking for her, I went to the police.
The officers searched all the neighboring courtyards and playgrounds and asked the little Allah's friends, but they didn't find her anywhere.
She was found 2 days later.
A woman who cleaned the streets found her.
The girl's body was in a trash container not far from the building in which she'd lived. Therefore, the clairvoyants went there.
I didn't want to live without my child. I can't.
I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. I wished I'd been killed instead of her.
I love her so much. I always go to her grave to ask for her forgiveness.
The aunt still remembers the last time when she and her niece went for a walk that spring.
She asked me to make a wreath for her, so I made it. And she put it on her head and said, "I'm a princess." And then she hugged me and pressed me so tightly.
Help me find out who did this to her.
And what happened?
She didn't die here.
She was brought and dumped here several hours before she was found.
After the girl was murdered, she was held in some kind of locked-up room, something like a basement.
The examinations revealed that the girl had been murdered the same night that she disappeared. However, it remains a mystery where her body was kept for over a day before it was dumped into the container.
Allah's spirit told me my murderer threatens Amina.
This is some kind of maniac, or I don't know who it could be.
She will show us where she was murdered.
Allah's spirit brought us to the door and pointed at the apartment on the first floor.
I live here.
What do you mean?
I live here with my mom.
Was she murdered at home? There was something wrong about this story.
Do you have any of the girl's possessions?
Yes.
I have a vivid vision. The girl is tormented. She's raped. And she's strangled.
But how could the rapist and murderer enter the apartment in which the girl lived. And who could he be?
I see the hands of a man. It's a strong man. He has dark brown eyes. And you know this man.
Probably.
You know him. Why is the child calling the murderer her father?
I can't believe it at all. He's the only person I trusted in my life.
We warned her 100 times it could end up in a tragedy at home.
It turned out that Allah called her stepfather, her dad.
By the time her daughter was murdered, Victoria had lived with a man named Gaji for 7 years. The woman's first marriage had collapsed after she fell head over heels in love with the handsome Oriental man.
It's such a great love. But he's in prison now.
For what is he there?
This time, for a rape. He raped Allah.
Gaji Muslimov, who used to live with Victoria, is currently serving a sentence. For the rape and murder of the 8-year-old Allah, he was sentenced to life in prison.
I don't know who the murderer really was. I can't believe he could do it.
The woman is certain that the man she loves would have never done anything like that. He only confessed everything because of the pressure from the police investigators.
They tortured him so badly that he ended up in the hospital.
Our expert found a police officer who was involved in the investigation. And he clearly remembers Victoria's partner confessed to the terrible crime. This is incredible, but the rapist claimed it was all the girl's fault.
He said the girl entered the kitchen and told him she wanted it, so he had sex with her. And when the girl started screaming, he strangled her, and that was it.
Do you know what I'm standing next to?
The storeroom.
The tears. The dark room and the suitcase. Why is the child in the suitcase?
Tell them. Why aren't you saying anything? You complained to me that he'd tied her up and put her in the suitcase.
Ask Mom, and she'll tell you.
The woman won't tell us. But Lisa says the man really locked his little stepdaughter in the suitcase to punish her for misbehavior.
Whenever she took a piece of bread improperly or peeked into the fridge.
Yes, it did happen, but I put an end to it.
But if Victoria admits the man was cruel to her daughter, why does she refuse to believe he raped and murdered the girl, especially after the experts proved he was apparently guilty?
Muslimov's sperm was found in the girl's vagina. Is there any more sound evidence than that?
I see you behind the bars.
I was imprisoned for this.
She spent 4 years in prison.
For the murder of your daughter.
For helping him to take the body out of the apartment. But I didn't do it.
According to Victoria, at the moment of the murder, she was in the apartment. Together they came up with a plan to get rid of the child and keep the crime hidden from everyone. They hid the girl's body and then called the police, telling them that she had disappeared. The next night, they took the body out and dumped it in the trash container in the neighboring courtyard. Both his and her testimonies mention it.
He tortured her. Don't tell me you didn't know anything.
No.
But your murdered daughter says you did.
The girl's aunt only found out about this nightmare after her death. She was told about it in front of the morgue, from where they came to take her niece's body for the funeral.
This woman, a medic, went out and said, "I've seen many things in my life, but I've never seen a child who was raped for 2 or 2.5 years.
Could it be a kind of lesson for me? I don't know.
A big mother of a lesson. The child was murdered.
The only thing the mother could think of after her child was murdered was how to avoid prison for the man she loved. But I can't call this feeling love. This is some kind of perversion."
He's also being released soon because he's got the money and hired expensive lawyers.
It turned out that Victoria's partner submitted an appeal, and his life sentence was canceled.
The case was sent for a review, and the court may announce a new sentence soon. The lawyer is sure that Victoria's man will be released.
My client is not guilty. He will be released in any event.
I asked her what she would do after he's released, and she told me, "It's none of your business who I'll be sleeping with."
I didn't wish to spend even a second more in that woman's company.
What was the doll Allah was holding? It looked like it was smeared in blood.
She received it as a present, and she drew all over it. This is how she expressed her emotions.
And I saw a notebook with an awful phrase in it. He is the evil, and there was a third word I couldn't make out.
I had a dream. I was holding that notebook in my hands, and it read, "He is the evil. Dad, period, evil."
She was forced to call him Dad.
The spirit of the raped and murdered girl, through us, wanted to save her niece. Because if that beast is released, little Amina's life will be in danger.
I'm absolutely shocked and stupefied. I'm terrified to even think of what happened to my sister, and I don't want it to happen to my daughter. I'm taking my children and leaving.
You and your family can come and live with me. Oh, you know it well.
After the psychic's investigations, despite all the attempts of the beast's lawyers, the court sentenced him to life in prison. The murderer will never be free again. If you're impressed by this story, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to our channel, not to miss new episodes. A terrible crime remains unsolved. A young mother was tied up and strangled, and the murderer, Motherly, covered her body with a blanket and left it on the shore of the estuary. But the monster will be found many years later. His victim's spirit will point at him. Welcome to Psychic Investigations, a channel of real stories. Here, people who call themselves clairvoyants investigate criminal cases and paranormal phenomena. In this episode, the psychics are going to shed some light on the baffling murder of a young mother from Ukraine, 23-year-old Anna Sukhanova.
I was really shocked to learn about that. It was extremely hard.
Anna's body was found on the shore of the estuary, 15 kilometers away from Odessa, on the 3rd of October, 2013.
The young woman was severely beaten and strangled. Her arms and legs were tied with stick tape, and her mouth was gagged with it.
It was the cruelest murder in the region in years. Dozens of the best detectives were involved in the investigation.
There were no witnesses, no evidence, no murderer. It's been underway for 3 years already.
Anna Sukhanova lived with her daughter, Karina, her husband, and her mother-in-law.
That evening, she went to meet with her friend Ilona and promised to be back in an hour. However, she later called her husband, Ihor, and said something very strange, claiming somebody was hunting her, and she was scared.
Ihor told us she'd said a car was following her.
It was the last phone call from Anna. She vanished after that.
The same night, she was brought to the morgue as an unidentified body.
The victim's ID or personal items were never found. Ilona, her friend with whom she had the meeting, also went missing.
It's been 3 years since the detectives started searching for Ilona, who the investigation views as a witness. But could she be an accomplice, or is she even still alive?
Anna was a housewife and raised her daughter. According to her family, she never had any enemies.
I still can't understand who could be following her or why somebody would need to kill her.
To find out the victim's name, the law enforcers showed her photo on the local TV station. This is how her body was identified.
We went to the identification. I immediately recognized her once I saw her.
My uncle told me my mom had died. Dad cried a lot, and so did I.
Ihor was the victim's common-law husband and a stepfather to Karina, not her biological father. After Anna died, the family ceased all communication with him. I've tried to contact the man, but so far, in vain. Nevertheless, I don't lose hope.
The 9-year-old Karina understands her mother is gone. But most of all, she would like to see her one more time, even briefly, to tell her,
Mommy, I love you so much. Please don't leave me.
Karina is Anna's copy, a little identical copy.
Anna called her daughter a little wonder. The girl remembers her mother hugging her and whispering tenderly in her ear.
You're the best daughter. There's nobody else like you in the whole world. And she played with me. She swung me on the swing. And I used to repeat, I'm a birdie.
Karina was only 6 when her dearest person was murdered.
It doesn't feel like Mom died, but me.
Anna's brother took her daughter to live with him. Karina has no other relatives. However, the loss of her mother became too stressful for the girl, and she retreated into herself.
She sits down in the corner of the room, curls up and sheds tears. Of course, we tried to do something about it and went to see a therapist.
Only 2 years later, Karina's smile came back.
I would like the psychics to arrive and find the person who murdered my sister.
I really want to know who did it and look into their eyes. For what? She was only 23. What harm did she do to anybody? Why did they kill her?
The most powerful psychics in the project, Kayal Alekbarov and Yana Pasinkova, took up the case. On their way there, the clairvoyants decided to share their initial feelings.
Last night, I had a dream. In it, a woman ascended the staircase of a building and stopped in front of the apartment 38. Could it be the place where the murderer lives?
I see a man. He's black all over, and his clothes are strange, something like a gown, a cape, or a coat. He points at a cross. It's either a graveyard or a church. And then the hills. Or it could also be lettering. I don't get it. Kayal, it looks like some kind of clues.
My djinns say, find the person with the dragon. She knows an important secret.
You might be surprised, but the psychics are going to find this person. Meanwhile, Yevgeny and his wife, Yulia, are waiting for them. Their friends and neighbors have also gathered to know the truth about Anna's death.
Hello?
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming and...
Take a card, please. Who owns these walls now? Whose apartment is this?
It's mine and my wife's.
1 second. Anna was also supposed to inherit it.
Yevgeny and Anna's grandmother bequeathed her 3-bedroom apartment in the downtown to them.
They were planning to sell it because Yevgeny wanted to live separately, and Anna was already living with a man. So they decided to split it.
Yes, real estate is also a motive, and a very strong one. The date for the sale of the apartment had been arranged, but 4 days before it, Anna was murdered. Quite a strange coincidence.
I didn't do it. I've never killed anybody in my life.
Can I have your hand, please? I see you being beaten.
Yes.
By a man in a uniform.
You'll tell me everything, you jerk, this man says.
Was this man forcing you to confess that you'd murdered your sister?
The police arrested me the next day after Anna was found dead. They thought I was involved in the murder. 4 of them beat me, attempting to crush me mentally.
It is typically the relatives who are initially subjected to suspicion, especially when there is a motive. In this case, it was the apartment under their joint ownership. But after the police checked Yevgeny, they released him.
He was home with his wife at the moment of the murder.
My djinns are speaking of the girl related to Anna.
There is the girl, Anna's daughter. Her name is Karina. We love her as our own child.
Was there an outsider who was making trouble? Like, trying to take the girl forcefully?
Ihor. This is the man Anna lived with.
He wanted to have custody of the girl, but was denied it.
Where's her biological father?
Nobody knows that, but he's alive. However, we have no idea where he could be.
Anna married early, and when she got pregnant, her husband left her. But Anna decided to give birth to the baby anyway. It was hard, but she never regretted her choice.
She always put her daughter first, so she was always fed and clean. She would even save money by denying herself something she wanted to buy.
I feel the man Anna lived with is like a werewolf. Calm on the outside, but at some moment he becomes a beast.
He can't control his actions.
The man could be the murderer. So, I decided to check this theory. Do you have Ihor's photo?
I have it on my tablet.
Is it at your home? Let's go there.
The psychics follow the family to the apartment. After they moved in, the spouses have been gradually renovating it.
This is Ihor.
The murderer's energy emanates from this man. It happened about 3 years ago when Anna died. Could he have really strangled her? My djinns inform me that this man is currently in custody.
It took me a while to find Anna's partner, but I eventually found him. Ihor is indeed in prison. He's serving a sentence at a penal colony for an attempted murder. However, it has nothing to do with Anna. He was sentenced after her death in 2014 for stabbing a friend of his in the neck in a drunken brawl. The man survived.
Therefore, at the moment of Anna's death, Ihor wasn't in prison yet. That is, he could be the murderer.
Ihor refused to talk in front of the cameras, but I had a chance to speak to him in private. On the night of Anna's death, Ihor was at home with her daughter and his mother. We have had this information confirmed.
The man turned to a life of crime after Anna died. It's good he failed to adopt the little Karina. The girl could have suffered because of what he did.
He took her with him to where he usually went. You know, the places where lots of drunks meet. I didn't like it a lot. So eventually, my wife and I took the girl to raise her in normal conditions.
Karina, Anna's daughter, entered the room. The girl had just come back from her English class with the tutor.
Hello, little one. Can I talk to you? I wanted to work with the girl to try to feel through her what had happened to Anna. Because the bond between a mother and her child endures even death. I feel your mom comes to visit you.
Yes. I mean, sometimes I have a feeling that she's around me, hugging me.
Suddenly, Kayal Alekbarov decided to go outside, and everyone went after him.
I felt where the woman had gone on the last night of her life.
Kayal! Where's he going?
The feeling brought the psychic to a bus stop, not far from Yevon's home.
Your sister was here, and she wasn't alone. It's dark, and I hear voices. Anna speaks to some young woman. They seem to know each other well.
I see her. She's fair-haired. She's bright as a Barbie.
Her name is Ilona. It's her friend. They went to school together. She's blonde, she dyes her hair.
Now I see your sister and her friend going over there. And here, somebody was waiting for Anna. This woman, Ilona, she vanished for a reason. She knows the murderer. I see a fair vehicle. It's a van or a small truck, and a man of about 45 getting out of it. He's of average height and built. He has graying hair.
He's not married.
The murderer drags Anna into the van.
Look, she knows the man. And he knows her.
But Anna didn't want to see him.
They argue over something. He tells her, "You're fooling me. You're lying to me."
He loses control of himself. He starts beating her in the vehicle. Anna screams. The man fears somebody could hear her scream. Then he ties her up.
The stick tape.
The gag of stick tape.
Then he strangles her with his hands, and she dies.
Yes, mechanical asphyxia was recognized as the reason for her death.
The man takes her somewhere.
There's Suki Estuary over here.
We need to go where Anna's body was found.
The psychics are on their way to the place where Anna's body was found. But suddenly, something behind the windows draws the attention of Yana Pasinkova.
Kayal, look to your right. Do you remember what I told you this morning? I see a man. He's black all over, and his clothes are strange. Something like a gown, a cape, or a coat. He points at a cross. Can I get out? I realized what I'd seen that morning. It was a monument. I also had to use the remaining clues.
Let's do what? I'm going with Yevgeny to the site where Anna was found dead. And you, Yana and Yulia, go where the signs lead.
Where will the strange signs from her vision take Anna Sukhanova? Is it possible that she'll find the murderer?
Stop. The same cross. Can we turn left now?
Yana, you're doing such amazing things. I can't believe it. I've lived in Odessa for so many years, but I can't navigate in the city as well as you, who only arrived here and found what you were looking for immediately.
I didn't understand where the signs were leading me, but then the slim blonde's image visited me again. The clues were leading us to Ilona, the missing friend of the victim. All right, let's get out. Hi, what's your name?
Yarek.
Is your mom's name Ilona?
Yes.
Has the clairvoyant found the missing woman who was the last person to see Anna alive?
Hello?
Hello.
We're looking for Ilona.
Get out of here, please.
Wait up. Don't shove me. The man attacked me and was ready to punch me. But what matters most is that I found Ilona and even had a chance to speak to her.
Do you want this man to kill me too? You'd better find someone else.
I need your help.
After much deliberation, Ilona finally revealed to the clairvoyant the name of the man whose van Anna was riding in.
Alexander.
He's over 40, isn't he?
And his hair is graying.
He's got no wife, no family, right?
A wooden stare. He looks at you as if he's a maniac.
He's got a van, doesn't he?
He had a van.
How can we find him?
He lived in Marshala Jukava Street.
The building number?
38.
It's strange, but Kayal Alekbarov has also seen the number 38, but he said it was the number of the apartment, not the building. Could this be the address where the murderer lives? Meanwhile, Kayal Alekbarov and the victim's brother are finally at the spot where Anna's body was found.
I feel the man takes your dead sister in his arms, and he carries her over there. This is where she was found.
Yes.
The murderer covered her with something warm.
He covered her legs with something dark. It was some kind of garment.
Anna's friends who arrived with the psychic to the site of her death froze, anticipating the answer.
He showed care. He had strong feelings for Anna. Do you know something about it?
I don't.
The man wanted her to be only his woman. And what's most important, he wanted her to leave her damned work. What kind of job could it be? And then the jinns showed me the picture I'd seen at the beginning of the investigation. Find the person with the dragon. But they also showed me that person's face. It was a woman. She must know where Anna worked. Do you know it?
Marina.
It's the dragon.
The dragon.
Did you know Anna well?
Yes, we grew up together.
What secret about her job are you concealing?
I don't want to talk about it.
You must tell it immediately. It's what can help us find the murderer. Was she a woman of easy virtue?
She was a prostitute.
Do you remember the bus stop where Anna had a meeting with Ilona? It was the place where they worked. People call it a 100-meter strip. Girls stand there day and night, selling themselves.
But Anna lived with the man. Did he know she sold her body?
Yes.
This is utterly shocking. It turned out that Ihor, Anna's partner, was responsible for converting her into a prostitute. Anna loved Ihor so much that she agreed to become the woman of easy virtue.
Who killed her?
One of her clients who fell in love with her did it.
The clairvoyants exchanged the information by phone and arranged a meeting at the address that the victim's friend, Ilona, told them.
Ilona told us the number of the building, but she didn't tell us the apartment in which Alexander lived. But I suddenly remembered my morning vision. Anna stopped by the apartment. 38.
Apartment 38.
Hello.
Where is Alexander?
We don't have anyone with this name here.
How long have you lived here?
For about half a year.
Who did you purchase the apartment from?
This man, Alexander.
What's his last name?
We can't tell you this.
Alexander disposed of the apartment in which he resided at the address that Ilona knew.
But we couldn't give up on it, and so we went to ask the neighbors. Do you have any contacts of Alexander, like a phone number?
Twice, when he got drunk, we almost had a fight. I don't talk to such neighbors.
I also managed to find some information on Alexander. As of the moment of the murder, he indeed lived in that apartment. An ex-sailor, he's divorced. He's never been convicted of any crimes. But pay attention to the fact that after Anna's death, he sold that apartment, then another one, and then he disappeared. Nobody knows his current whereabouts.
The man sold all his property to avoid prison.
He's rich. He used to be a sailor.
Today, we found an important witness and felt the man who murdered Anna. The remainder is the responsibility of law enforcers.
Thank you so much.
I feel Alexander's life is in danger now. Anna's spirit wishes revenge. And do you know what? We're not going to stop her.
After the investigation by the psychics, we learned that the police found Alexander's trace. However, a tragedy struck him shortly afterward, just like Kayal Alekperov felt.
The culprit died.
What killed him?
I don't know what killed him. We have the information from the attorney that the man had died, and because of it, the case was closed.
Tell me, please, did they have time to interrogate Alexander and conduct a search?
Of course.
Did you find any evidence that would prove it was he who murdered Anna?
We found the hair.
Did you find it in his van?
Yes, and we also found a sneaker that belonged to her.
This is unbelievable. The murderer did whatever he could to avoid justice. However, death found him, just like the psychics had predicted. If you're impressed by this story, don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. Many more fascinating investigations are on the way. A sensational investigation into the series of bizarre crimes. Who's murdering women of the small town? Don't miss it out. The psychics will come to the place where the murderer lives. You are watching Psychic Investigations, a channel of true investigations. The people who call themselves clairvoyants tackle the most tangled criminal cases and amazing mystical anomalies to uncover the truth. In this episode, the psychics were approached by the relatives of Svetlana Mikno from Ukraine. On the 15th of August, 2013, some monster stabbed her to death right in the downtown.
The forensic examination found that the victim received 5 knife wounds. The first stab into the lung was fatal, while the other 4 were done after the woman was dead.
The body of the 33-year-old Svetlana Mikno was found at 7 in the morning, not far from the building in which she rented an apartment. The day before that, the young woman had gone to visit her friend, who lives down the street. She'd brought presents for the woman's son, her godson. She left them late at night, but she never came home.
She was lying here, right on this spot. But the police forbade me to approach her. She was lying covered with a blanket. There was a large pool of blood next to her head.
It was a resonant murder. The investigation involved dozens of police personnel, police dogs, and forensic experts. The investigators conducted inquiries with all potential witnesses.
It was summer. Everyone had their windows wide open because of the heat, but nobody saw or heard anything.
No traces of sexual violence were found on the woman's body. None of her belongings were missing.
She was murdered for nothing. It wasn't a robbery or anything. I simply don't understand it.
According to the police, the young woman was not in debt or had any enemies.
Svetlana was an accountant at one of the local supermarkets. She had divorced her husband 6 years earlier. She had a daughter, Elisa. The loss of her closest friend was devastating to the girl.
First, we told her that her mom had an accident and was in the hospital. But then we still had to tell her the truth.
It's been almost 3 years now, but the girl's pain hasn't passed yet. It's still hard for 14-year-old Elisa to accept her mother's death.
She can't be at the cemetery. Every time we go there, she's hysterical. Once, when we went there, she almost fainted. She said she wanted to remember her mom alive.
The police never found the bloody murderer.
I would really appreciate it if the psychics could help me find her murderer. I want that person to be punished for what they did.
Famous psychics Anna Sukhanova and Yaroslava Fedorova set out to find the murderer.
Once I started working on the photo, I immediately had a vision. It was some kind of brawl. It involved young women humiliating, tormenting, and beating someone, but I didn't see the victim. It could be her.
What does it mean? Could some young women have been involved in Svetlana's murder?
The cards tell me to search for a woman in a window.
The clairvoyants went to the place where the victim's relatives live. Svetlana's sister and mother are waiting for them there, together with the locals, who have been living in fear for their own lives since the moment of the murder.
The people are here to learn the truth.
Please help us. We will be deeply grateful.
May I hold your hand? I am sorry, Mom. I wanted to buy flowers, roses, but I was too late.
Yes.
Svetlana was going to give her mother a bouquet of 55 roses as a birthday present for her jubilee. However, the celebration never happened. 2 weeks before her birthday, the mother had to take flowers to her daughter's grave.
She's grateful to you. She says you took her daughter.
It's true, indeed.
Natalia, Svetlana's sister, has no children of her own, so Alisa, her niece, became a daughter for her.
I have taken custody of my niece because she's my family.
Svetlana's daughter isn't here. The girl has been through a lot, so her relatives don't want to traumatize her even more.
Alisa wrote a note, and I keep it. Today, on the 15th of August, my dear mommy was murdered. I have no mommy now.
But who took the girl's mother's life?
A man who was around her was blamed. This man had brought her much suffering.
Dimitro, the man she lived with.
Several years after the divorce, Svetlana started a new relationship. She and Dimitro lived as cohabitants for a year.
Did he hurt her?
They had been quarreling lately.
It's weird, but Yaroslava Fedorova is looking back all the time. What is going on? Who or what did she see?
She wanted to leave him, didn't she?
He threatened her.
There were threats.
He told her she wouldn't live with anybody else but him.
This is insane. Could Svetlana's cohabitant have killed her?
Did the police check him well?
They said he couldn't have done it.
The law enforcers checked Svetlana's cohabitant's alibi. The witnesses confirmed he was home on the night of the murder.
Yaroslava, where are you going?
The woman is calling me. Somebody else was murdered here. There are bloodstains here. One stab, and then another. She didn't expect it. She turns around, sees the person, and says, "What are you doing? Why?"
My name is Elena. My mother was murdered here. She was waiting for me.
It turned out that a year after Svetlana Mikhno's murder, in 2014, another murder happened in the town. The 45-year-old Marina Kolokayeva was stabbed to death near the building where she lived. She took 5 stabs.
I see her in some kind of fair suit with a pattern of big, bright flowers.
We buried her in that suit.
Your hands are in blood. Your hands are in blood. What does it mean?
Give me your hand. There was an argument. Then he left, pissed. I only hear shouting.
Serhiy is the deceased Marina's husband. That day, they both went to his father's birthday. On their way home, they had a quarrel. The man hurried home. Marina stayed in the courtyard to wait for her daughter, who was coming home after visiting her friends. It was midnight, but nobody could even imagine what happened after that.
I was in the bathroom when I heard Marina's scream. She shouted, "What are you doing?" And then, after it, "Serhi, help!"
Serhi, help! And then there were screams. I heard them on the second floor. When I ran out, I saw Marina.
The first thing I heard when I opened the car door was yelling. When I approached, I saw Mom. She was lying next to the entrance door, under the entry phone. My stepdad was squatting next to her. Mom was covered in blood, and she was lying in a pool of blood.
She was rasping. I thought her throat was cut. I pressed it with my hand and began giving her artificial respiration. I was telling her, breathe, breathe, breathe. Marina died in my arms.
Serhi is a rescuer at a mine. However, he failed to rescue his wife. He can't forgive himself for the quarrel and leaving Marina alone in the yard.
I can't live with it. I didn't want to speak to anybody. It was so stupid. I simply sat at home and cried all the time.
The strangest thing is that this inhumane crime had no motive either. Her belongings remained intact. No traces of sexual violence were found. The woman had never mentioned any conflicts with any of her colleagues or friends.
Behind this guy, I saw a woman. She is dead.
Is she your mother?
Yes, she was my mother. She was murdered too.
This is inconceivable. It's the third victim, and she's also a woman.
The 46-year-old Irina Danilia was found murdered in the summer of 2015. She was stabbed 13 times. And once again, it wasn't a robbery or rape.
Irina Danilia went to visit her elderly mom, who was sick, and stayed at hers until late at night. Irina was divorced, and she lived with her younger son, who was 16 then. Her elder son lived separately with his own family.
My younger brother called me and said our mom was murdered. I asked him, "What? How?" I ran there immediately. I don't even remember putting on clothes. My brother was hysterical. He was crying and saying he didn't save Mom. He said she was calling him for help. She shouted out, "Help!" By the time he ran out, she was dead.
At that moment, I saw a figure behind the bars and 2 scales. They were the scales of justice. Somebody was suspected in this murder, and they were detained and tried.
There is a suspect in the case. He's in prison now.
The 38-year-old Artem Henilitsky, a local resident, was arrested on suspicion of murdering Irina Danilia. He was a specialist in measuring devices at an agricultural firm.
However, the murderers of Svetlana and Marina, the first 2 victims, were never found, and we needed to proceed with the investigation. When I look into your daughter's eyes, I clearly see a man. I think we must go to the site where she was murdered.
The psychics go to the site where, almost 3 years ago, the terrible murder of Svetlana Mikno happened, and the families and friends of the other victims go with them.
It's dark, and I can hear a bubbling sound. She can't shout or say anything.
She's choking on blood.
If the clairvoyant's assertions are true, then it's clear why there were no witnesses to the heinous crime. The victim didn't have a chance to shout out.
He had been following her for a long time. He was chasing her as if he were following her trace.
Anna Sukhanova takes her pendulum. Where will it bring the psychics?
She looks at the murderer.
Are the psychics walking towards the place where the mysterious murderer ran afterward?
He's walking and mumbling to himself. She received what she deserved.
Finally, the bitch received what she deserved. They're all the same.
The murderer is over there.
This is the place where the murderer lives.
The pendulum brought us there. The cards showed that door. Hello.
The psychics had felt that the murderer was a man. However, a woman opened the door.
Do you live here?
Well, yes.
There's a murderer behind this door.
I don't get it.
Where is the man? He lives in this apartment.
He's in prison.
Is he being tried?
Yes, the investigation is underway. He was arrested for a murder in 2015 on the 9th of July.
So he's a suspect of the murder that happened in 2015. What was the woman's name?
I think Irina.
She was the mother of this young man.
This is unbelievable. Does it mean that, while searching for the murderer of the first victim, the clairvoyants found themselves at the place where the man who is suspected of killing the third victim lives? Was it the same person who killed all the 3 women?
I called an ambulance because he had a wound.
It turned out that in the summer of 2015, Svetlana's husband, Artem, came home bloodied and with a deep wound. He said he'd been attacked by somebody. The woman called the ambulance. Artem was taken to the hospital where the police arrested him.
The examination revealed that the blood found on the man's clothes was the victim's.
However, the authorities didn't charge him for the previous 2 murders. Might the psychics have made a mistake?
Do you think he didn't do what they claim he did?
I'm absolutely sure he didn't murder anybody because he's not a murderer.
This is very cruel, especially given that he himself has a child. He's a calm and quiet man. All his friends, everybody says he wouldn't hurt a fly.
He couldn't chop a chicken. How could he kill those women?
I must be 100% certain he is the murderer, or 100% certain he isn't.
The clairvoyants and the suspect's wife go outside. Svetlana is certain the psychics will help her sort it out and prove that her husband is innocent.
Go away.
Why are you telling me to go away?
She knew everything. I'm sure she did. She was simply protecting her husband.
I don't think he's guilty. Everybody has husbands, and every wife will defend her husband.
But why were we brought to your place?
We've got to check it.
We can't blame a person for nothing. It's easy to point your finger at someone, but if you claim something, it must be supported by evidence.
To sort it all out, the clairvoyants decided to visit the site where the third victim, Irina Danelia, was murdered.
If he really did it, I want him to spend his life in prison.
Blood. Everything is in blood.
She was walking from there. Cut fingers.
Her fingers were cut.
She resisted.
I know Mom fought.
From over there. He watched you find her as she watched, the mother choking on her own blood. Fear and pain in the arms of her son, a beast. He was following her. So he watched.
Here's the window. A woman looking out of the window.
I realized it was the woman in the window that the cards showed me in the morning. She'd seen the murderer and his victim from the window of the store she works at. Did you see her?
Yes, I said hello because I knew her well.
Was she followed? By a tall, slender man?
I saw him clearly. It was Artem Hnilitsky.
Svetlana? Then why did you tell us it wasn't him?
The same man murdered Svetlana and Marina. Zhana's pendulum brought us from the site of the first victim's death to the murderer of the third victim. His wife claimed he was innocent, but then we made certain he was the murderer.
It turns out that the man who is suspected of Irina Danelia's murder, Artem Hnilitsky, killed all 3 of them.
As a beast that tasted blood, first, second, third, and the interval between the murders is almost identical, and he even did it at the same time of the day.
At that moment, I saw all the 3 women. These were the spirits of the victims. Suddenly, another woman appeared next to them. She looked terrible. She was cut and covered in blood. I couldn't believe it. It meant that there was another, 4th victim.
Who was the 4th woman?
His mother-in-law.
He killed his mother-in-law, her mother, and she's defending him. This is 100% truth. Everybody knows it.
What makes you think he murdered her?
Because the court ruled so.
Had he been previously tried as a murderer?
This is impossible to comprehend. Did the man kill his mother-in-law before he committed the 3 awful murders?
She humiliated him when they all lived together. He's not a match for you. Why did you choose him? Look at this idiot, Svitlana. Did she tell you these things?
She did.
She was provoking him.
He put up with it for a long time, but then he lost control. He didn't understand what he was doing. He murdered her.
In 2011, Artem Hanilitsky was sentenced for the murder of his mother-in-law. The woman received 15 stab wounds. The court acknowledged the fact that the crime was committed in the heat of passion. 18 months later, the man was granted amnesty.
But Svitlana refused to believe her husband had murdered her mother. He's being tried currently, and she has sold everything she could to hire the best lawyer for him.
When I look at him, he looks back at me with this face, and I can't help laughing. He's so kind and calm. I could always talk to him about anything.
How could you? You knew he'd murdered already. How could you defend him and claim he was incapable of murder?
I swear I didn't know it was him. I didn't believe it.
This man's mother-in-law was an authoritarian woman. After he murdered her, he changed. He felt he had the power. I got revenge on one of them, and now I can get revenge on all of them. At that moment, my morning vision returned. Some kind of brawl. Young women are involved in it. They humiliate, torment, and beat somebody. And then I saw who they were beating. It was a teenage boy. It was the murderer in his youth.
The girls bullied him all the time. They surrounded him and kicked him. It happened when he studied at the college.
Now all the puzzles have fallen into place. He has had mental problems ever since he was young, resentment and anger towards women. So, the humiliations from his mother-in-law became a trigger.
Please, people, don't be mad at me. I swear I didn't know. And I'm terribly sorry that it happened. I am so sorry.
What matters most is that he was punished.
Thank you so much.
We're so grateful. We heard what we wanted to hear.
We waited for 3 years. You helped us a lot. Thank you.
I'm shocked. How dared he? I didn't believe it. I couldn't believe it until the last moment. What a cruel thing he did to my mom and those people. What did they do to him? I don't get it.
It is astonishing how bullying in his youth and humiliations in family life made a cruel maniac out of a timid young man. If you're impressed by the story, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Many more shocking investigations are ahead.